Hey everyone, this is Amanda Moore from the Angelman Syndrome Foundation, and you're listening to the ASF Podcast, the show that explains everything you want to know about Angelman Syndrome. We're so excited you're here, and we hope you enjoy the show. Everyone, thank you for joining us at the Angelman podcast. I am super excited today because I have an amazing and special guest with me. As you know, that we try to bring on amazing people from our community to talk about their journey with Angelman syndrome and how it has impacted their life. And I'm excited to have one of our dear friends and an inspiring mom, Deanna McCurdy, on our call today. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We're so happy that you're here. You have been such a wealth of knowledge for this community, and the activism and the advocacy that you have done through Miles for Smiles and a lot of other things that we'll get into soon. I just admire you so much. So thank you for taking time to talk to us today. But first, maybe for people who don't know you, who are listening, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Okay. My name's Deanna McCurdy. I live out in the foothills outside of Denver, Colorado. I have two beautiful girls. They're older now. One is 18 and she's just about to graduate from high school in literally a few weeks.
Wow.
And then I have a just turned 16-year-old angel named Hayden Grace. And Hayden is a sophomore in high school. My husband and I moved out to Colorado from Georgia about a little over, 9.5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Now.
Okay.
That's why I kind of have a little bit of an accent, but
I love it.
I try to cover it up. And I talk faster than a lot of Southerners.
It's all good. So now I want to dig into your family a little bit, especially for with Hayden. I know she's 16 now, but take us through, when you received the diagnosis of Angelman syndrome, what was that like? Because I know that, it was 16 years ago, things were probably a lot different and trying to get a diagnosis. So I'm just curious on what that journey was for you.
Yeah, right. I think when you start to meet other families who have angels, our story is actually very similar to so many across across the spectrum. Hayden was born typical, normal birth, other than 6 days after she was born, she was at home and she stopped breathing. So we took her to the hospital. They did she stopped breathing, but I was holding her. So they kind of whacked her on the back a few times. She kind of coughed and we're like, okay, then now she's okay. Well, that was a little odd. Let's go.
Yeah.
We'll just stop by the hospital just to see, we drive over there. They took one look at her, realized her lips were completely blue. But, as a new parent, and you've been looking at your child all day, every day for a week, it was a slow, gradual bluing that we didn't really see. So they rushed her by ambulance over to, the PICU at the Children's Hospital in Atlanta. And we spent, 10 days there doing every test under the sun, spinal taps, we're, throwing all these antibiotics into the poor kid. They didn't want her to eat. And because she couldn't keep her oxygen levels up. Wow. And so after 10 days, though, we were finally released with a whole, literally wagon full of, breathing monitors, oxygen, you name it.
Wow.
And with the diagnosis of reflux that aspirated to her lungs.
Okay.
So her lungs had just filled with fluid.
Wow.
And so that's what actually stopped her breathing. But, now we know with kids with Angelman's about the whole tone issue, and that was causing the fluid.
Yeah.
But so we had months of, okay, now we have pneumonia. Now we're back in the hospital because the lungs are weak. And we were sleeping in shifts, just like probably almost every Angelman parent. Every 2 hours, 2-3 hours, it was like, who was going to go lay with her? Because, she would kick off the oxygen sensor and all the alarms would go off. And so we did that, for pretty much the better part of at least the first year.
Wow.
She still wasn't a great sleeper, but at least we were trying. And at that time, my other daughter would just turn 3. So you're trying, just like anybody, to be that parent, be around for your other kiddo going, oh yes, life is normal. And you're like, oh, but I have literally not slept in weeks.
Right.
So
right.
that's how it started. We had seen our pediatrician at one point, and because I had an older child, I could tell Hayden was sitting up at 6 months, but she wasn't trying to crawl. She wasn't reaching for choice. She was just very content. And so I talked to the pediatrician. The pediatrician's like, oh, she just had a rough start. She'll come around. I was like, I think there's, more. So we had early intervention PT come to our house. And when the PT came, thank goodness, she was amazing. I mean, she'd been a PT for like 30 years, and she's working with Hayden. And she's like, there's more going on to this kid. Like, I've seen enough kids to know. I think you need to see this neurologist, get in, wait until you get an appointment. Don't see anyone else. He'll figure this out. And so we made the appointment, got in finally. Hayden was like 16 months old. We go in, we see him. Within like 2 minutes, Hayden had spun herself around, was facing a corner and giggling. And, and he looks at us and he's like, oh, is she, like that often? And I was like, oh, yes. I mean, she's been so sick, but she's a happy kid. It's like kind of like this, what I was thinking, the blessing of, this kid's been really struggling, but she's happy. And he's like, and you see him kind of jot something down. It's like, I want you to go, get some blood work done, have some tests. And I'm like, what? No, she's a happy kid. I've got a moody, temperamental toddler at home. How about you work with her? And sure enough, at 16 months, all our testing came back positive for Angelman's. And, and just like you never forget the day you get the phone call. And this guy was just kind of blunt on the phone. Like, okay, here's what it is. Here's schedule an appointment with a geneticist, go online and read about it, and you get off the phone just like any parent, any of us have. And every dream you thought you had for your family was just slammed and crushed right at that moment. The dreams of, I'm going to have 2 girls that are going to grow up together. They're going to be best friends. They're going to play Barbie dolls. We're going to go on family camping trips because we were always a very active family. We're going to do hiking. We're going to, go on these amazing vacations because we loved just traveling and exploring. I mean, that's who my husband and I were before kids. And we just wanted to bring our kids into that kind of life. And, it just stopped at that moment. And it's hard. And it's not a one day hard. I had a couple months of being in a really dark hole, going through the motions every day of, okay, I'm keeping my kid alive. You're like, I'm doing what I have to do to keep her alive. But I could tell there wasn't that distance warmth. It wasn't like, oh, I just love you. It was more like, I don't know how to process this. My life has just changed. Are we going to be kind of locked away in, you felt like you almost were like going to prison. I mean, and that might sound terrible, but you do, you're like, what just happened to our life? This child who I love, I know deep down, but this child is just completely turned every dream we have. And I thought they were shattered. And so, there were a couple months about that. Once you kind of work through that, and I think we all go through those periods. I mean, like I said, she's 16 now, and you still have those days and weeks of, of struggling. But I also know my personality is, it's just how I'm wired, and maybe it's because I'm only 5'2", and I always felt like I had this little Napoleon complex. I had to prove something, prove that I can do something, prove that I can overcome something. And it's just in my nature that after those kind of couple months of like, oh, I'm letting this diagnosis control me, I started thinking, well, what can I do about it? How can I change this? And I need to feel that I have a control over this and not letting this diagnosis control not only my life, but my family's life. And that was kind of a pivotal point. I think when I said, I've got to change the way I view this. And it not only did it change, me wanting to get up in the morning, but it changed how I viewed my child, how I viewed our life, and the potential that we could have in our life other than the life that I thought the internet described what my life would be like. So I started, reaching out to a couple of their Angelman parents who had kids that were just slightly older than mine. And kind of reached, I was like, okay, they're still living. Like, how are they doing it? They They have other kids. How are they doing it? And I met the most amazing mom, and she always is going to be amazing to me. Stephanie Manning, in New York. And Stephanie had Ariana. And Ariana is probably 3 years older than Hayden. And Stephanie was going to train for her first half marathon, the rock and roll half in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, fun.
And she and I connected. And so like I am picking her brain as to, okay, how do we navigate this journey? What do we do day to day? And she started picking my brain because my background was in running. You know, I ran in high school. I ran cross country in college for a really small Division I school. But after college is where running became part of my thing, my life. I realized that I remember I had a college coach who I was kind of irritated. Okay, I was ticked off when he said this to me when I was about to graduate. He's like, Deanna, he's like, you're just starting. And he goes, you didn't do anything in college, you know, you're just starting. And I was like, what do you mean? I gave everything I had. And I started realizing after college that no, I think, you know, this running thing is clicking with me. I was a late bloomer. I only ran cross country 1 year in high school, so I wasn't burnt out by the time I finished college.
Right.
So I got really into running as my kind of thing to do outside of work hours. After I graduated. And so running was always my background. I met my husband and he got me into mountain biking and adventure racing. So when Stephanie started asking me questions about how do you train for the half marathon? What do you do? What are your workouts? What do you eat? I realized this was something I knew something about. And, you know, I knew it from years of the experience. Plus my major in college was physical therapy and exercise science. So it was like all those little pieces of the puzzle of what I was building my life for, but I didn't realize I was building my life for, were coming together in my conversations with her. And through those conversations with her, we came up with this idea of Team Miles for Smiles, you know, creating a team like I would look at leukemia team in training or, you know, the MS Society, and you would see how they used something that could be viewed as negative, but look at what they can do and how they can affect lives. Not only can they raise money and they're raising awareness, but they're inspiring other people through their actions. And so I kept thinking, wait a minute, this is all making sense. This is what I can do. This is what I can get excited about, going to sleep at night and first thing when I wake up in the morning. And yes, we are still working on raising an angel and taking her to therapies and not getting much sleep at night. But here I finally feel like I have a purpose behind all of my, you know, my years of experience. And I read a quote once that said, when your passion meets your purpose, then you're your most powerful. And I'm like, my two greatest passions in the world, my children, and my love of health, fitness, and the journey, and that I believe in, of having a healthy lifestyle and running specifically to give you not only an outlet, but to give you more physical and emotional well-being. To marry those two passions, suddenly I had this purpose, and we created Team Miles for Smiles in 2011. So Hayden, you know, was only, you know, 2 at the time. And it's just grown ever since. And it's been such a neat journey I thought, okay, great. We're going to raise money. We're going to, you know, help cure Angelman syndrome. We're going to let people know what, you know, I didn't want to hide in my dark corner and sit in my house. I'm like, oh, well, I could either do that or I can take Hayden out and about. And then Hayden, we're in this checkout line at the grocery store and she knocks all the candy off the shelf. People look at her and go, oh, that's Hayden, rather than, oh gosh, look at that kid. I'd rather them know who she is and understand that versus, versus just stay at home. So yeah, it's been neat, but the neatest part to me was it has nothing to do with the raising money. It has nothing to do with the, you know, okay, yes, we're raising awareness. It has to do with the transformation of these Angelman parents and family members and caregivers who have kind of gotten on board over time. And maybe we're sitting at home on their couch every day saying, woe is me, this life is so tough, to, okay, I'm going to set this goal of my first 5K and I'm going to do the run walk plan and I'm eventually going to get to there. And then they cross that finish line and they're a different person.
And they're addicted.
Yes. And it becomes that to the 10K, to the half marathon, to the full marathon. And just to see that like I said, the transformation in their self-esteem, their confidence, their knowing that, okay, I can take on whatever the world dishes at me because I've got this.
Absolutely. Well, let me go back. It's amazing. And I think that the people listening, especially if they're parents, can probably see themselves in different parts of everything that you just described. So before we move into more of like the health and wellness part of it, I'm curious from your perspective. I remember myself that defining moment after diagnosis of, okay, like, what are you going to do, Amanda? Like, what are you going to do about this after going through that grieving process? I mean, I don't know about you. I can actually remember exactly where I was when, I said, okay, it's time to pull yourself up. I was in the shower and I was having a meltdown. And I just remember like, okay, pull yourself up. What are you going to do? You can either let this destroy you, or you can get active and get moving and do something, right, to benefit your family, your child with Angelman. But I'm curious for a parent that's listening right now that may be in that moment still, what small piece of advice would you give for someone who's listening right now that may have just gotten the diagnosis, that's not ready to jump in, but is still just feeling that despair of a life, a death of a life that they dreamed of?
Yeah, I mean, it does get better.
Yeah.
It isn't our life is so different than what I thought it was going to be. But our life, because of Angelman syndrome, is more full than I ever thought it would be. I used to, okay, this is bad and I shouldn't be sharing this because, well, actually then maybe other people can relate.
Yeah.
I remember I'd go out and run my little, like I said, my little Saturday 5K, 10K races. And you'd get to, say you're doing a 5K, okay? And I'd get to mile one would go well, you'd hit mile two, and then all of a sudden you kind of get in that lull a little bit. And I'd be like, it's okay, I'll just get through this point. And then you pick back up in mile three or whatever and you finish. And you're like, next time I'll go for a PR. Or, someday I'll run that marathon. And after Angelman being diagnosed with that, I don't say that anymore. I don't say, well, someday I'll run that marathon. Someday I'll try to push myself a little faster in that race because I know that life can change in an instant. Obviously, ours all did when we got that phone call that day.
Yeah.
But because I understand that firsthand now, I don't wait for this. Well, someday I'll do my marathon. I'm like, you know what? If I have the opportunity now, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to take it on. And I think that's how we as a family have approached life. Yes, we have those dark moments. We have, as we said, those days where you're digging yourself out of the trenches. But when we have the opportunity to do something, to go on an adventure, to go on a trip, I'm like, we're going to take it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. No, I mean, if it was easy, they always say if it'd be easy, anybody could do it, right?
Right,
no,
right.
Our life especially is not easy with Angelman syndrome. But our life, because of it, we have grabbed at those opportunities for ourselves, for our kids, for our families. And I feel the relationships we have made are deeper and stronger. Yes, you do lose a lot of people in your life.
Yeah.
You lose people that you thought you could count on and trust on that would be there for you.
Yeah.
You lose family members that you're like, oh, they'll help watch the kids. And they disappear off the sides. And that's the hard part about Angelman's. Or anybody, I would say, any family who is taking on a child that has severe disabilities, we do become very isolated.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the relationships we have developed are deeper and stronger, and you hold on to those people and they lift you up in those times. And that's where I really feel our community has really given us that life, like that hope for life, that, not hope. I mean, when we were first at the diagnosis, I had my little come to Jesus moments many times, many conversations, upstairs, many arguments with the man upstairs saying, hey, I'm not built to be this loving, nurturing. I'm going to just be at home with my kiddos all my life. That's just not how I'm wired. Why was I given this? This is not, you picked the wrong person, and I realize I'm a fighter, and you hate it. You hate having to pull out those, mom boxing gloves out, but okay. And this is where I totally lose my train of thought right here.
No.
So, you do learn to buckle down. And I remember having these conversations with God and saying, hey, okay, I think I can do this until she's 5, God. But then we need a fix it. We need a cure. And then we'll be good. And then she can catch up in school, and then I was like, okay, then you make your bargaining. Well, maybe till she's 8, and now she's 16 and Hayden is still the Hayden we know, and she's still challenging, and she is still not speaking, and she's still grabbing at hair, and she, but we've learned to not only live with it, like I said, we've learned to grow with it.
Yeah. Well, you were just telling me before we got on that you guys just had an amazing week in Disneyland, and how wonderful she did, and how she walked 3 miles. And those are kind of things, Jackson is just 8. And that's kind of the thing I dream of, but I'm also terrified of, right? So it's always nice to hear from families who have kind of walked before us, like, take those chances, do those things, like, try the best to live that life with that child, and get them out and do things. Because I love your example when you were talking about Hayden in the store, because I think the best thing we can do for our loved ones with Angelman syndrome is make sure the community knows who they are, and have the community embrace them in a way that is so powerful, because you need that village, right? And you want them to feel like, welcomed. It's so funny when Jackson walks into school, the principal calls him the mayor of the school, because he just walks around and everyone says hi, everyone's talking to him. But he's, you build these people around them who are going to lift them up, to try their best to watch out for them. But I love that you're getting them out, and, you're getting her out and you're doing things together and doing some crazy things. I love keeping up with you on Facebook. Like, you guys are very adventurous. I am honestly always living vicariously through you and your amazing hikes that you guys do, your running, your mountain biking. So I'm curious. So first of all, do you remember your first miles kind of like event, or something that you did under Miles First Miles? Do you remember that?
Yes. So in 2011, so we kicked off Miles First Miles January of 2011.
Okay.
And I said, okay, if Hayden works so hard in therapy every single day, I need to find something that's going to challenge me, that's going to make it worthwhile, that I'm saying, I'm putting it out to the world. I'm going to be doing this challenge, and I'm going to be fundraising this challenge. And at the time, because I had a running background, doing a half marathon or a full marathon, well, I've been there, done that. And and so to say, oh, I'm doing a marathon as a fundraiser, back then, people were like, well, you did one last year. So I thought, okay, I'm going to sign up for a half Ironman.
Oh,
okay. I had no swimming background. I mean, I grew up in Georgia, so we spent our entire summers in lakes and pools and anywhere you could go to cool yourself off the water. Right. But I played swimming, and I didn't swim competitively. Yeah. And I knew I could run. And biking was, like I said, I mountain biked with my husband, for years before we had kids. But I had no cycling background either. And I was like, well, if she's going to challenge herself, I'm going to set this as my goal, and I'm going to challenge myself. And a sweet friend of mine who was a triathlon coach volunteered to coach me. She said, I'm going to do this instead of donating to you. I want to coach you, which was great, because I knew nothing about it. And it was an amazing experience. I mean, I looked at it as the metaphor of life with an angel. You know, the swim for me, you're swimming, you know, you're struggling, you think, then you finally figure it out, and then bam, you get slammed in the face with water.
Right.
You know, and like
Or
that's day to
someone's
day with
foot.
angels, right?
Yeah, right.
Just when you think you're treading water, you're like, no. Then I'd hop onto the bike, and the bike was, well, I love the bike, but it's hard. You know, it's hard for me, but I enjoy it. And I'm like, well, that's kind of after you get through that initial first few years, you're like, well, life is hard, but we can pedal through, we can climb the climbs, we can enjoy the descents. And then you got another climb, especially now out here in Colorado, there's lots of climbs. And then you get to the run, and I'm still hoping we get to the run part with Angelman's, because I'm still on the bike. As that, you know, where suddenly you're like, I'm onto the run. Life, I get the life, I understand life, and we have lots of moments like that. Times. So it became this metaphor, and but it also started my journey. I thought I was a one and done. Like, this half marathon, half Ironman, check it off. Boom, I've done my little fundraising. Now I can move on. And it was funny. So we did the race. It was Augusta 70.3 in Georgia.
Wow.
And I qualified for the World Championships. I came in like second in my age group. So I was like, okay, I guess we're not done with this.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Angelman thing. You're not done, right? And so the next year, so we did that, and it just kept building, you know, and it kept building to doing the full Ironmans. Then I really got into, as I said, we had that mountain biking background, so I really got into Xterra triathlons, which are off-road triathlons.
Wow.
And when you move to Colorado, you're like, I could ride my bike on the roads, which are full of potholes and cracks out here because of the winters, or I could play on the trails. And I fell in love with that. And again, as I said before, you know, when these opportunities kept presenting themselves, and I'm like, I have the opportunity, and I'm fortunate where I live that I can walk out my door and I can run on trails. I can bike on trails. I don't have to plan that in my schedule I got to load up a bike and take it somewhere. You know, it's because of where I live that I've been able to do what I do and squeeze it in the nooks and crannies. And we'll probably talk about that in terms of figuring out scheduling, you know, when you're juggling all those balls up in the air all the time with our kids. Yes. And it's like, I keep saying, I might not be able to do this next year, but I can do it right now. So I'll do it one more time. And now I'm like, I turned 50 this year, and I'm like, okay, we'll see how much longer, not only because Hayden's older and bigger, and it's, you know, and we don't have as much, we don't have respite. We don't have any of that, you know, to help us out. But also I'm like, my body's getting older. How many more years can my body hold up for doing this? So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. You know, we've traveled with Hayden to other countries to race. You know, I've raced in Hawaii and Canada, and
where did you just race?
Italy. So
yes, I think I saw that.
Championships were in Italy, and my oldest, she turned 18. I thought I was done with off-road triathlon last year. I was done with having to get into a freezing cold pool at 5:30 in the morning and drag myself through swim workouts. And then my oldest last year was turning 18, and she said, "Hey, Mom," you know, because she also has been dragged to all these events. Right. Because it's the great family of let's get the family phone day, and it's usually chaos. And my husband ends up beyond exhausted because he's juggling kids while I'm off having fun in the woods by myself. So last year she said, "Mom," she's like, "I turned 18, and at age 18, you're allowed to race at the World Championship races." She's like, "And the World Championships are in Italy." She's like, "Wouldn't that be a neat senior trip?" And I was like, well, you know, some kids go on senior trips and they don't have to do a race.
Right,
you know?
right.
Their family doesn't actually go on races to do trips. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but all of our trips tend to involve some sort of racing. Even Disney, like she and I've done the half marathon together. I've done Disney, the marathon down there, you know, in Disney. So it's like, the poor kid, we've kind of ruined her mentality of like, people actually go and just relax on vacation.
Right.
We never did.
Not the McCurdy.
So okay. You know, so if you want to do that, well, I guess you need a training partner, because it's not like there's many 18-year-olds out here that are doing that kind of. So I became her training partner. We trained all last year together. And we went over as a family to Italy, and poor Hayden had been really sick before going. She got a virus, and the virus triggered vertigo. And we didn't know, of course, for 5 weeks that she was suffering vertigo. We just knew she just wanted to lay on the ground and was just crying and sweating all day. And we finally got an appointment actually at the Angelman Clinic. Actually, the story is we went to Cornhole for the Cure out here, and that Heather Spatafor and Stacey Davis put on, and met Amanda. We also met Dr. Dewis. Well, you pulled me over to Dr. Dewis. Dr. Dewis takes one look at Hayden. She says, I have a cancellation Monday morning at 8 a.m. Can you get into the clinic? Because we've been on the wait list for so long.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're there, Unfortunately, we live, 45 minutes from the clinic, and drove her in there. And they figured out, they're like, we think she has vertigo. Like the sweating, all of that has nothing to do with a condition. It has to do with she's in a panic state. So vertigo itself resolved within a week, even though we saw a vestibular PT, but the PTSD from it and the medication that we put for anti-anxiety just made things even worse, which we didn't all realize. So we doubled the medication when we went on the trip, which made it 10 times worse.
Even worse, right?
Right. So so Italy. So you saw the beautiful pictures. You probably
didn't see the background of
Hayden.
Yeah.
Because Hayden was happy when we were in our, oh my gosh, we had to rent a 9-passenger van.
Fun.
We had 2 bicycles, a stroller, and 4 people. And if anybody here is from Europe or has been to Europe, 9-passenger vans on roads in Europe.
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
Themselves because the roads are half the width of the roads in the U.S. And there's tour buses.
So who drove? Was it you or your husband?
Oh no, that was my husband. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
So Hayden spent a lot of time because she was thrilled by that. As our kids are, but anywhere else she didn't want to be, we did tag teaming, like who's hanging out with Hayden in the room and who's going to go out to eat with Haley, and we did a lot of that. But we raced. It was funny. Not funny, but it was in the Dolomites. And I felt like we talked about Disney World. Yeah. Like I felt like I was in like the living Disney World. The water was the same color blue, the tidy bowl blue that they dye the water at Disney World. It was naturally that color.
Oh my gosh.
Mountains, how steep the peaks were. It was beyond gorgeous. And my daughter did great. It was funny because I was so secondary was my racing because I was so focused on her racing and focused on Hayden, focused on, okay, we're having this big family experience. But I think because of that, I didn't put the pressure on myself for the race. So I ended up having a great race,
nice,
which was awesome. And we had a hard trip, and I think we all had PTSD from the trip for a bit. We actually, on the way home, we had to fly through Toronto. We effectively shut down international security at the Toronto airport for 5 minutes, thanks to Hayden having a meltdown on the ground because she was freaking out. She wouldn't sit in the stroller. They were so great in Toronto. They offered to put us up in a hotel for a night and try to come back the next day. And we're like, no, we just want
to get home.
And I was like, because our luggage has already been sent on, and she sleeps in one of those tent beds, that we bring with us. And I'm like, we have to have the tent bed to sleep. If not, we're renting a car and we're driving, however, 26 hours to get home. So anyway, it was.
I bet you guys were all exhausted.
It was an experience, but getting back into, you look back, you're like, life isn't easy with Angelman's.
Hey guys, it's Amanda here. As you know, we're here for you, our community. If you have questions about any topics we can discuss in our podcast, or if you have ideas for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. All you need to do is email me at dearamanda@angelman.org. Thank you so much for listening and your continued support of the Angelman Syndrome Foundation.
I might not have even gotten into this kind of racing had we not had Hayden, because I might have said, one day I'll try to do this. Instead, we're like, you know what, we can do it. Let's do it right now. And let's take on this.
And I'm interested because I think that, obviously part of why this, why First Miles came was, because there was this activism, you wanted to do something, you wanted to raise awareness. But I think the one thing that worries me, and I see a lot, is, us as caregivers are exhausted, we're tired. The older we get, our bodies start giving out on us because it is a lot of, work, and our kids get older, and there's, that becomes a challenge. So I also wonder, how much of what, the decision to move and do this would you say is also incorporated in this whole idea of self-care and taking care of yourself as a caregiver and how important that is? Can you speak to that at all?
Oh, I can definitely speak to that. And I think like prime example. So yesterday, it was weird out here in Colorado. So on Sunday, it was gorgeous. It was 60 degrees and it was beautiful. And then yesterday, the weather changed, wind picked up. I went outside for a run and I'm like, it's spitting snow on me. And then I came inside. I did my little strength routine. I tried to squeeze it all in before Hayden gets home from school. And I'm like, okay, I got to do my 30 minutes, 45 minutes of strength training. And I don't do heavy strength training. I mean, this is a lot of body weight exercises, just as kind of injury prevention exercises. And as I'm doing like reverse lunges, I'm like, my left knee has a tweak in it. I woke up this morning and I'm trying to walk and I'm like, what is going on with my left knee? Like it just had this pain in it. And so after I got Hayden, up, ready, drove her off to school, got home, I knew, we're having this talk and I'm like, you talked about a shower. I'm like, I haven't showered in like 2-3 days. And yes, I did run outside yesterday, but it was cold. And the day before I did go on a bike ride and I don't think I got a shower after that either.
I get it.
Because,
I get it.
It's juggling. So today I took a shower and I was like, well, maybe that'll help my knee. No, it didn't, and then I'm like, okay, I have 35 minutes before I speak with Amanda on the phone. I can do 30 minutes of yoga on like an online yoga thing. Yeah. And I'm going to see if that helps my knee, and it did. I mean, I haven't exercised, but I was like 30 minutes of yoga, then boom, get on the call with you. So I did shower before meeting with you.
Nice.
And I did that.
We both did. That's very exciting.
I don't know what I did, and as a caregiver, Hayden was sitting on the couch with me last night and she decided to climb over me to get off the couch when I was trying to keep her on the couch because she ultimately wanted to go outside and it's like snowing and 8:00 at night. And she went right on top of my knee. So I know something like that, and so today I was like, what can I do? Because I remember my knee last night. I was like, oh my gosh, when you're like straight and, and our kids they're heavy, especially when they're trying to wiggle themselves around things. And so it was today, like, because it's become so much more of my lifestyle, I'm like, okay, what can I do proactively? You know what? I'm going to do the yoga. And as I was doing yoga, I'm like, this feels so good. Why don't I ever do that? Like, I need to be doing this 2-3 days a week. I'm only doing it once every couple weeks, and I love it when I do it. But I realize I'm getting older. Our kids are getting older and bigger. And I have to do those things and prioritize those 30 minutes of strength and core exercises, even if they're not fun and they're boring, And last night I would have done them. Sometimes I do them when I'm watching TV with Hayden or my husband's watching TV, sitting next to her on the couch, and I'm on the floor doing planks and everything.
Right.
Because my back one day can all of a sudden be tweaked because of how she decided to lunge herself over to something. Or like I said, my knee today, I'm like, okay, do some yoga. And even more than the cardiovascular aspect of we need that for a healthy lifestyle, because for me, that's kind of been my mental therapy. And like, I will choose cardio any day over strength training, over stretching yoga. But as I'm getting older and I have to still, we're it for our kiddos. I have to take care of her. I have to be able to get on the floor to change her. I have to be able to react when she does a crazy lunge towards something. Right. And so I've had to say, you know what? I have to make this a priority, because if I don't keep myself healthy, who else is going to be able to take care of her?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a few minutes left, but so one thing that one reason why we asked you to come onto the podcast is you have so graciously are dedicating your time to help our amazing Windy City Angels with training, questions, and everything in between. And for those of you who are listening that don't know what I'm talking about, we have a group called the Windy City Angels that run the Chicago Marathon every year. This year, I think we have, 51 runners, something around that. We have a good group of runners. And they are everything from never run a marathon in their life, maybe have never even ran a mile in their life, all the way to, individuals who are pretty seasoned runners. So I love the spectrum of runners that we have, but you have come on. One, you're running with us. I'm so excited. Yes. And two, you're going to coach as well. So, for people who are out there listening right now that are kind of laughing, thinking, I am never going to do an Ironman. I'm never going to be able to even run 2 miles. I'm never going to be able to do this because I don't have time, I'm exhausted, whatever it may be, like, you know, I know you could probably give a tons of lists, and we may have to do a part 2 podcast with you, but what would be in your mind for that one person that's sitting and listening right now who's never done something like this? What's the advice to get started?
Oh, there's so much.
I know, right?
So much. I'm trying to think of like how, you know, I told you I'm a fast talker for a Southerner. So there's always, I tend to talk too much and
No,
instead
you're
of saying
fine.
one piece of advice, you know, sign up. Sign up. I mean, I think we're actually I think we're full. Our team is full, but for any race, pick a goal, and it doesn't have to be a race. Pick a goal, write it down, or sign up and tell people about it. A lot of people don't tell people. You tell people, and suddenly you're accountable to it.
Yes.
And I tell you what, you're going to hit that freak out moment, like, oh crap, what did I just do to myself? Have a glass of wine, do whatever.
Right.
You know, a lot of times sign up for the race because you've had the glass of wine. I might have I think that's how I got into my first Ironman, actually.
Right.
You know? Like, what the crap did I just do? Because I had wine with a friend of mine. But once you have that, and it is, you make it a big, I mean, even a 5K for someone who has never done anything is a big, scary goal.
Sure.
Okay? And I have a friend who, she turned 50 this year. It was a girl I went to high school with. And we knew each other in high school. We weren't great friends, but thanks to social media, we've connected over the years. And she turns 50 this year. So she never done a triathlon, said, I'm going to do a half Ironman. She's 3 weeks out from it.
Hey. Oh,
and
wow.
she had the panic when she first signed up. And then you kind of like, okay, back off. Find a plan. She's following an online plan. You know, there's great online plans. Same thing with marathon training. Same thing with couch to 5K plans. I'm a huge believer in that whole couch to 5K. And the run walk plans are Galloway's run walk plan. Hal Higdon has some great, you know, everything from a 5K to marathon training plans online. And you find the plan. Don't look at the whole thing. You'll like panic again. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to get up to, as you can relate, you know, I'm not going to be able to do an 18-mile, 20-mile long run. I can't even do this. But look at it as week to week, and then even break it down day to day. Okay, I can do one day. Okay, today it has me, I'm going out there for 20 minutes and it has me run a minute, walk a minute for 20 minutes. I can do that, you know, and then you can keep building on that. And that's where the friend I know, she's 3 weeks out from the race and she hit the, oh crap, what am I doing? And I, you know, I sent her an email and I was like, look, you know, go back to where you were before. You have, and look at each day, you know, and where you've gotten yourself to this point. And I'm like, you have done all the work, you know, and if you follow that training plan, and yes, life throws us big time curveballs. Yeah. My training, when I have a training plan, it's fluid. It's like, oh, like today I've already swapped today and Thursday workout.
Yeah, you have to be graceful. Yeah, you got to give yourself grace.
This, you know, and I was like, exactly, giving yourself grace, but taking those little baby steps. So my big advice is find something you thought you would always want to do. And if you've never done triathlon, don't sign up for an Ironman as your first one. If you've never run a step of your life, don't go, oh, I'm signing up for this marathon.
Yeah.
That can be your big goal, and it might be 2 years out, you know, but what can I do as smaller goals along the way? Okay, I'm going to do it. Now I want to do a 5K. There's a 5K coming up in 3 months for my daughter's elementary school. I'm going to make that my first goal. Yeah. And then look into, like I said, something like a run walk plan. And each day, you know, do those little things that are ultimately going to get you to the first goal, which is a step along the way to the big goal.
Yeah, I think for me, when I decided that I was same thing. I was a runner in high school. So I always tell people when they're like, I can't believe you're running all these marathons. I always say, listen, like I kind of was a runner. So it's a little different. I ran in high school and college as well. But I took a long pause because I needed a break from running, as I'm sure at one point maybe you did too as well. But I always tell people like that time every day, whether it's every day or every other day that I'm able to go and run is really, I see it as a very cherished time for myself. It's the time that I can work on my mental health. I can work on my physical health. And I didn't know how much I needed it until after COVID. Honestly, I didn't really get back into like taking care of myself and running until after COVID. And COVID like destroyed me, like mentally and physically, right? And I was like, I can't do this anymore. There has to be a change. And now, like, even though those runs are hard, I yearn from the time that I put my earphones in and listen to the most recent true crime murder show or whatever I listen to, and go, because it's really, really important for my own healing, both mentally and physically, to do this. And so I think I would also say, like, you just take one small step in goals, but also understand how much you owe it to yourself. Like, you deserve this time. You deserve this, even though I know everyone's like, well, it must be nice that you find time. Like, I get it. It's hard. I mean, usually my runs are happening at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? When everyone's still asleep or whatever. But, you do, when you choose that priority, like you figure out time to make it happen, and it does make you feel better. So the last thing, though, because this, outside of Miles for Smiles, you've made a living out of loving and coaching and lifting up others when it comes to their health journey. Tell us a little bit about that. And if people are interested or want to connect with you, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, well, thanks for the little extra plug.
Yeah, of course.
Again, it's all kind of metamorphosized, over those years. And like I said, that was my background. And then, my background being in exercise science, being in physical therapy. And I even after I had my first child, I went back to massage therapy school and did the little 8-month course, thinking that'd be a great way to be a mom, but also be able to, train. And then Hayden came around and, of course,
change plans.
But it's interesting how, though, because of that background, I have been able to build this over the years and watch it grow, whether it is through Miles for Smiles or, as I was telling you. So Miles for Smiles was originally our training team, our training fundraising team. And then as I got back more into, I always said I was not their coach, I was their chief cheerleader.
Yes,
I love being a cheerleader, and I was never a cheerleader in high school. I was in the band in high school.
I was
a cheerleader. But I love helping build people up, because I find that when it comes to racing, they always talk about it's the 90-10 rule, it's 90% mental.
Oh, yes.
We can do all the training. You can follow the training plan. But if you don't believe in yourself, and it's hard, especially where we are in this journey, you have those days and months and weeks where we have doubts in ourselves. But if you have somebody there who believes in you, even during those rough times, and helps kind of push you along and tells you, you still got it, I believe in you, then you can help them succeed. So I went from that, which is how it kind of started with Miles for Smiles, to picking up, whether it was my triathlon or my cycling coaching certifications over the years, just because it's fun. I love it. And I love like soaking in and learning, the science behind it. That being said, data, I can go down my own rabbit hole when it comes to analyzing my own data and stuff, which is not necessarily great all the time. But I have, and I have athletes who some love data and some are like, no, I don't care. I want to do everything based on perceived exertion. And I'm totally a big fan of that as well. So just building that. And as it developed, we ended up kind of branching off, and I have my coaching business called Wings to Fly Racing. Yes. Obviously a spin-off with Wings to Fly, because of is still always inspired by our kiddos with Angelman syndrome. I know without them, I might not have been on this path in life. I don't know what path I would have taken, but this is my path because of my angel.
Well, I love it. You guys can't see in the audio. You can't see if people are listening, but she's wearing a really cool T-shirt with a really awesome logo of her business. So if people are interested in learning more, getting in contact with you, where should they look to find you guys?
Well, first off, of course, the easiest way is social media.
Yep.
It's funny. Like if some breaking news story comes out, you could go and you could go try to look and search online or tune into a news station. No, you just go to in our neighborhood. We go to our neighborhood Facebook page, and you're going to learn everything that's going on. Somebody's going to report. So easiest way really to contact me is, on Facebook. Actually, I have somehow over time, because I'm not a great technology. I have 2 Facebook pages.
Okay.
Deanna McCurdy, my normal mom page.
Yep.
And then I have Deanna McCurdy dash, I think it's called Wings to Fly Racing.
Okay.
Is, the other one. Because my Instagram, which is Deanna McCurdy on Instagram, or Deanna Walsh McCurdy on Instagram, linked to that and created a new page way back when. And so my Instagram photos get shared to that, but I don't do much on that. But yeah, Instagram, of course, I love that. It's kind of my happy place because I like looking at photos of people and sharing some stories. And so, yeah, just reach out to me on there. We do have a website. It's miles-4-smiles.org.
Awesome.
I think it's under construction right now. I know we were revamping it, and we're revamping it.
Awesome. So the best one.
It's on my to-do list. Deanna, you have to submit the rest of the content.
Right.
But we'll have that linked. I'll keep it out there. And get it back running again. But like I said, social media is the best way to kind of reach out to me. And then, so what I've hoped to do with our team is, most marathon training plans are 16, 18, 20 weeks long. So we still have a ways to go to where we get into the meat of starting to train and build for the Chicago Marathon. But I'm going to post a basic, a beginner and intermediate and kind of more of an advanced training plan that'll be available to anybody who's on the Windy City Angels team. But if you want, hey, I think I need a little bit more structure. I want to work through other things. I've got other things going on in life, so my schedule doesn't quite fit with those kind of plans. You can reach out to me, and we can do personal coaching through that. And then I provide you kind of with a weekly training plan. And sometimes I build them 2 weeks out, but I always like to restructure and analyze and then proceed from there, because some people might have injuries or a vacation coming up, or it might be too easy for them, or it might be too hard, and we back off. And so that's where that's the benefit, I would say, of personal coaching. But in general, if you're part of the team, you're going to have access to those 3 plans. We are doing our monthly newsletter that I'll have on the Coaching Corner. And kind of tips and advice. We also have 2 other things real quick, 2 social media aspects. We have a Windy City Angels Facebook page, because I know Amanda was live on it the other day. She did her 8-mile outdoor run.
Yes.
Came home and got Jackson there and got to see the I caught your live. Like,
good. Good.
Later. I didn't get it live. I caught it later. So I saw that. So we're going to definitely be ramping that up. So because we really want to, as we talked about in the podcast here, we really want to bring community into it, because a lot of us have to train remotely on our own. We don't have big training teams, and it's hard and it gets long, and we're trying to squeeze it in at 4:30 in the morning and stuff. And just to know that others are out there and others are here for you and cheering for you and in it with you. And when we get to that race day, when we have that pre-race dinner and we're out there on the course together, the race is one thing. We're really doing our victory lap. We did all the months of the hard work. And so we are going to try to build that Facebook group so we really have that community. So when you guys meet each other for the first time the night before the race, you'll feel like you have known each other, forever. So
absolutely.
There's also Strava. So
I've heard of Strava.
People are starting to trickle in. So Strava is a great free online platform that you can sync your devices to, your smartwatches to, and it will transfer over your workouts onto the Strava network. And we have a Windy City Angels Strava.
I need to get on that.
You're not on the group?
I guess I should be.
Chloe, actually, non-runner Chloe formed the group, and it's been great because I've connected. Like, there's this guy, Will Wallace. Will, I'm giving a shout out to you because you're in Colorado Springs, and I've been not stalking because Strava. Yes, you can stalk, but you can also follow people. And Will he's a good runner, and so I was watching him, and it's neat that I would start to recognize names, even if I don't know faces, and I see what they're doing out there, and you can give little thumbs up, so little kudos to your other runners out there, in your group, like, hey, good job, I saw you did this workout today. Or for me, I always try to take a lot of pictures of my runs just because I want to remember the day, remember, wow, look at what I get to do, not what I have to do. Like, oh, it's such a miserable, like yesterday, rough day. The weather was rough, but then I get out there and I'm like, it's rough weather, but it has its own beauty to it. So I want to take those moments. So anyway, so you can post pictures on with your workouts as well. But we're going to have some fun little challenges as we build to keep people motivated. Yep. See, little workouts, not workouts, but like it might say, okay, our challenge might be, did you record 100 minutes worth of exercise this past week or something? And we'll just have these little challenges, and we might have some little giveaways through our Strava group. So if you're part of Windy Cindy Angels,
get on Strava.
Questions about Strava and you can't figure it out, again, reach out to me or even Chloe, because she figured it out, and figured out how to form the group really quickly, and she doesn't run. So yeah, we're out there. And that's anybody else, by the way, you don't have to be a Windy City Angel runner. Anybody who, you might be even a cyclist, but you're related to Angelman syndrome in some way, you can join it, because we'll cheer for you too.
Absolutely. And I think, thank you so much for joining us today. I think the one thing I love about your story, and I hear it so much across our community, is how amazing our families are when they receive the diagnosis, how they turn that into something that is so powerful, right? I think that you're right. This community is quite amazing and quite unique and powerful when it comes to what we do and how we show up for each other. And I'm always just inspired, and you're one person I've been totally inspired by. And I'm so glad that we have gotten to spend time together, and I can't wait to train with you. It'll be really fun to be together. But thank you for joining us today and sharing your words of wisdom. I'm sure we'll have you back on the podcast many other times to continue to do that, to support our families. But thank you so much for being on with us today.
Well, fantastic. Thank you again for having me. And I look forward to connecting with more families and growing in this journey.
Absolutely. Well, catch us next time on the next podcast. Thanks to our guest, and we love you all. See you soon.
Thanks for listening to the ASF podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support us, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating or review. And please don't forget to subscribe.